In this video, we'll cover tables. We're going to talk about inserting tables, formatting tables, and then inserting formulas into table cells. So there's a fair amount of ground to cover here, but it shouldn't take too long. So for an assignment that you have to do, you have to insert a table. There's a few ways to do that. So there's under the Insert tab, we've got this table option where you can just tell it how many you want. But for the assignment we have to do, there's not enough of these guys. So let's click on the Insert Table, brings up a dialog box, and we can tell it we want a number. We want 3 columns and 12 rows, but actually we want 14. We're just going to combine some, and we're going to let the rest of this stuff stay the way it is. So there it is. There's our columns and rows. We come here. We've got 2 new ribbons that appear when we insert a table. This one, the layout, allows us to do things like inserting, removing rows and columns. We can merge cells, which is what I'm going to do here for these 2 lines. That gives us the ability to put in our title blocks that we're going to need. So there is our table. Just a couple other notes: you can draw a table. That allows you to draw boxes on the screen like so. You can, so kind of like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. Just hit Control Z a couple times. There we go. So that's another way you can do it. I've never really tried to do that much. It's just seems to be kind of a pain to me. So this is the quickest way up to a 10 by 8 table. There's quick tables, which are, as soon as my system catches up with me here, kind of gives you some pre-built tables that are pretty useful. Calendars, for example, matrices, lists. We can insert an Excel spreadsheet, which can be handy. And one of the limitations of that is you don't have as many formatting options with an Excel spreadsheet. What it looks like is what it looks like. You're not going to be able to make it look as pretty. And then you got your insert table like we did for this one. So that's how you insert one. Let's talk about the layout tab. We've got our rows and columns options here. You've got whether or not you want to see the whoops, let me select this. View grid lines, properties. You can see all the different properties, the alignment of the text within them, the way they wrap, different options for the rows, the columns, the cell, that's text alignment, sizes, all kinds of things that you can set in there. And then, like I said, you've got your merged cells. And if I've got a merged cell, I can split them here. I can also split the table, so I can separate this top row like that. I don't want to do that, but that's something I can do. If I put my cursor here, go to layout, I can split the table up like that. So that can be handy when you're working with tables. You can also tell it to auto fit within these parameters. You can tell it exactly how high or wide you want the cells. Auto fit is generally the cell contents. Distribute rows, that gives you an even distribution vertically, and distribute columns gives you an even distribution across the page horizontally. Then of course you have your alignment of text here and some of your other options, sorting, which I think we might cover later on, and formulas. We are going to cover that today. So one of the things you're supposed to do is, let's move over here to the table design. We want to change the design of our table to, actually I'm going to follow in the order that the instructions give the information. So I'm going to go ahead and populate this with the information that is needed within the table, and then we'll get into the design features. All right, we have our data in here now. Let's talk about how we do these formulas. I want a total of all of these expenses right here. I don't want to include this, but there's a cool formula that works well in Word that we can use. Let's hit that formula button up here on the layout tab or ribbon, and it auto-populates this equals sum above, which is exactly what we're looking for this particular um, formula. So that's going to tell it to, sum everything above it and then stop when it gets to a blank. So it's not going to include this 2,587,000 and some change in our total. So let's click on OK, and that's what our total is. Same thing here. We want our total. All right. Now we get to something where we've got to get do a difference between the revenue and our total expenses. And to do that, we're going to come up here to the formula button, click that again. We don't want this sum formula. We want to use equals B4, which is this one right here. So we've got B because it's the second row over, column over, and 4 because it's the fourth column down. 1, 2, 3, 4. So these two count in this formula. So B13, and that should give us the number we're looking for. Same thing here, except we're going to use, oh, and don't do this, C4 minus C13. That's not going to do it for you. Okay, you can't put it in straight into the cell like you can in Excel. You have to come up here and hit the formula button. Like so. And those are the numbers we're looking for. All right, so that's how you put a formula into those. You have different formats you can use for these formulas. It's going to assume, like it did here, it's going to assume the format of the numbers that you're dealing with. So that's one positive thing. You don't have to worry about this too much. You have other formulas you can use. You've got several here that are listed. I encourage you to mess around with those. There's nothing in the assignments that you're going to need to do them, but they might come in handy. So there's that. There's the formulas. We've talked, I think, enough about the layout tab. Let's talk about the design tab. So you've got a few things here. We've got a header row, and that is the first row is going to be a header. We've got our first column, which is here. Those come in handy for different things. We want banded rows. Well, then nothing's banded. So let's take a look at these. Let me see what they're called, table styles. You've got quite a few of them here that are just built in. You've got these that separate the columns and these that don't. So you got list tables and grid tables. You can modify these styles if you'd like, just like we did the styles in the text. We're supposed to apply the grid table for accent 2. So that's how you do that. That's all you do. You just go down here, find it, you hover your mouse over it, it tells you what it is, and you select it. And it applies that. But we're not done because the formatting isn't quite what the example shows. So now you've got to come over and you've got to do different things. Like come over to the Home tab. I can right align these. I can turn the bold off. These I want to be centered, both of these actually. This one I want to change the case. Let me highlight everything first. To uppercase. I also want to make it bigger. I can use these buttons to just kind of, whoops, I need to select the whole thing. Let me undo that. I'll redo that last one. But I want to make it all bigger like that. That one's probably about the right size. Let me turn these guys off so you can kind of see the. So there you go. You can resize this so it looks more like the example. Maybe one thing I can do when I open up your tables, I'm going to be able to tell if you used a formula. Like when I put my cursor inside that number, it turns gray for the whole thing. If it doesn't turn gray, if it does like these, then I know you just type the number in there. So you'll lose points, and there's a fair number of points available on this particular assignment for these formulas. Make sure you do them right. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Have fun with this assignment.